Shall I start the class or they are yet to join? Guys, am I audible? Shall we start the class? Yeah. Seema, we are discussing about the synchronization and critical section problem, right? So we initially we have seen in the inter-process communication, we have seen the producer consumer problem, right? So there we are using in and out two variables so that we can fill only buffer minus one size elements only in the buffer, right? So to fill the buffer completely, to fill the buffers completely, so we will be using a variable count variable, right? So because the count variable is the common variable which is used both by the producer and the consumer, right? So what is happening because we are not following the atomicity, right? Because we are not following the atomicity. Once again. Only 38 members are there. Right. We because count is the common variable which is used by both producer and the consumer. Say there we should follow the atomicity, right? We should follow the atomicity. Otherwise, what happens? It is leading to the race condition, right? It is leading to the race condition, right? So to avoid that, what we are doing is we are making the transactions as atomic transactions. We are making the transactions as atomic transaction. That means when the producer using the count variable, right? The consumer should not make the operations on the count variable. That means when the count is count plus one is getting performed, right? The consumer should not make count equal to count minus one. Right? You are getting me, guys? Right? So that way we try to give the solution for the producer consumer problem, right? So then when it is coming to the critical section, so we have seen what is critical section, right? We have seen what is critical section. Then after we have seen like what is the simple solution for the critical section problem, right? Then we have seen the Peterson solution for the critical section problem, right? And the Peterson solution is also having some limitation. This Peterson solution problem is software based solution, right? This is the software based solution. So when we can say that the critical section problem means when we can say that the critical section problem solution is the best solution, right? So when we can say that when it is satisfying some requirements like mutual exclusion, progress, bounded waiting, right? So we checked this condition also for our previous problem what we discussed, right? And when we are taking the Peterson solution, the Peterson solution is not suitable for the modern computers, right? It is suitable only for the systems with the uniprocessor, right? For the multiprocessor systems, Peterson solution is not feasible. Why? Because the Peterson solution is using, right, uh, concept called, right? What is the concept it is using, ma? We will be using the uninterrupted service, right? That means whenever one process is inside, right, we are making that no other process is using that, right? No other process is using that. So that way, using the interrupts, right? Using the interrupts. So that is, we will be using the non-preemptive kernel there. We are using the non-preemptive kernel, right? So by using that, you can achieve or you can solve the critical section problem, but that is feasible only in the uniprocessor systems. But when it is coming to multiprocessor system and multiprocessor system and in the modern computers, it is not feasible, right? You're getting me? Handling interrupts is costly there. It will waste most of the CPU time in the multiprocessor system, right? This So that is the reason we should look for another solution for the critical section problem, right? So what is the solution is by using the synchronization hardware. Guys, I am uh, sharing my screen. Do let me know. Can I able to give me some time? I'm sharing the screen. Yeah. Can you able to see the screen? Yeah. Okay. So today we will see the synchronization hardware, and then we will see the mutex logs, right? Then semaphores we will see for today, right? Then after I require one more class for uh, the classic problems of synchronization, right? My laptop. Oh my God. Give me some time. So the classic problems of synchronization we will see, right? In that readers writers problem, and we have bounded buffer problem, readers writer problem, and dining philosopher problem. And monitors we have. So I require one more class for that. Then to complete the remaining topics in the critical section. So critical section, sorry, in interprocess communication, right? So in interprocess communication, almost we completed all the topics, but we are left with a small topic there. So that small topic we will see. That means with today's class, I require two more classes, right? So with today's class, I require two more classes so that we can complete unit 3, right? So mostly in this week, we can complete the unit 3, right? So then we can see the memory part, that is unit 4, right? So let's start with synchronization hardware. My PPT, I should. Is the screen visible for you? The PPT? Guys, please respond. Can you able to see the PPT? No. Is my screen is getting shared? No. Yeah. 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah, ma. Give me 2 minutes time. I will share the screen. Yes, ma, I'll share the screen. Meanwhile, I try to explain you some theory part. So the synchronization hardware, right? So my system, I mean, the Chrome is giving me the problem, right? So it is giving me not responding error, right? So that is the reason I logged in through mobile and laptop so that I can talk at least through my mobile, right? So, right. So we have just described one software-based solution to the critical section problem. Am I audible, guys? You can able to hear me, no? Right? Yeah, I can explain the theory part now. Just try to understand, right? So yeah, we have just described one software based solution to the critical section problem, right? So however, as mentioned, software based solutions such as Peterson solution, right, not guaranteed to work on modern computer architecture, right? So as I told you, right? So here, what we do is we try to explore more solution to the critical section problem using the techniques, right, that are ranging from hardware to the software-based API, right? So both available for the kernel developers and for the application programmers also, right? For the application programmers also, right? So all these solutions are based on a simple concept called locking. Whatever the solutions that we are giving now, either it can be a hardware solution or it can be mutex solution or semaphore solution, whatever. So whatever the solutions that I am giving now are based on a concept called locking, right? So that is protecting the critical region through the use of locks, right? You are getting me? We are trying to protect the critical regions through the use of locks. By using the locks, we try to, that means whenever one process is entering into the critical section, we try to lock the critical section. Then then when the process is coming out of the critical section, it will release the lock, acquire the lock and release the lock. What it will do is right? Whenever any process is entering into the critical section, it will acquire the lock, and when it is coming out, it will release the lock. And when one process is in the critical section and it is locked, no other process is allowed to enter into the critical section. So how we are going to achieve this? Now we will see with the different solutions. Now we will see with the different solutions, right? So here, I'll start explaining this synchronization hardware with the simple hardware instructions that are available on most of the computers, right? Yeah. Now you can see my PPT, right? I think yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. Right. So how you can give the solution to the critical section problem is using the locks, right? So we have so many systems that provide the hardware support for implementing the critical section code. So most of the modern computers are supporting some hardware instructions, right? Most of the modern computers will be supporting some hardware instructions, and those hardware instructions are used to maintain the logs on the critical section problems, right? So the critical section problem we can solve using the interrupts in the single process systems, but when it is coming to multi-process systems, right? So what we do is when it is happening in multi-process system, right? So what we can do is what are the set of instructions that are there, right? This set of instructions, we will make sure that they will be executed in some order. They will be executed in some order. That means when two or more processes are trying to execute this test and set instructions, right? Then what we do is we try to execute them in order. That means you should follow the atomicity here, right? You should follow the atomicity, right? So why I'm telling you this point is I have two instructions, hardware instructions here, that we will use to maintain the or to give the solution to the critical section problem is, what are the two instructions are test and set instruction and compare and swap instructions. Test and set instruction and compare and swap instruction. So these are the two instructions, the hardware instructions that are used to give the solution to the critical section problem, right? You're following me, guys? Whatever the software solution, that is Peterson solution we gave, I told you that is not feasible for the modern computers, right? Because they are wasting so much of time, right? With the interrupts, because that is based on the interrupts, right? So excuse me. Yes, right. So here we are using two hardware instructions. So in this solution, by making use of the hardware instructions, we are trying to give a solution to the critical section problem. That means making only one process to stay in the critical section, right? So how we will acquire this? By using this two types of instructions, we will see now, right now. Normally, this solution, how it will work is by making use of the locks, right? Protecting the critical regions via the locks. So what we do is initially while true, right? Right? Then what you do is acquire the lock. What you do? Acquire the lock. That means if the critical section is available, acquire the lock, enter into the critical section, then release the lock, and you execute the remaining section. Now, synchronization hardware. So modern systems or modern machines provide special atomic hardware instructions to implement the locks. For implementing the locks, we will be using hardware instructions, and make sure those instructions has to be atomic, non-interruptible. That means when one process is executing that code, that instructions, hardware instructions, no other process is allowed. Here we have two types of instructions, test memory, word and set value, swap contents of two memory, right? One is test and set instruction. The second one is swap, compare and swap instructions, right? So by making use of these instructions, we are executing the critical section problem. So if you see the definition of test and set instruction, if you see the definition of test and set instruction, it will be like this, right? So this method or this instruction type, whatever the test and set method, right? It is of the type Boolean. That means either it can return true or false, right? And what we are passing here, we are passing the Boolean value, that is target, right? We are passing some target. What is stored in the target, we are passing here. Now, Boolean RV, one more variable RV, there we are holding the value of the target in RV. Now, make target equal to true. After executing this instruction, make target equal to true, then return RV, right? Return RV. Now, what are the properties we should follow for this? Executed atomically, return the original value of the past parameter. What is RV means? What we are passing here, that will be stored in the target, and from the target we are taking it to RV, and finally what we are returning, we are returning RV. That means it should return the original value past parameter, right? Original value past parameter, it returns RV, and see the new value of past variable to true. That is the reason. For target, we are returning true. So these are the properties this test and set instruction should have, right? Now, how we are going to give the solution? By making use of this test and set, right? Now, whenever the processes wants to enter into the critical section, right, that can be done by executing this test and set instruction, right? Now, what we do is, here the processes will be sharing a Boolean variable lock. What are the processes that are currently getting executed? They will be using a common variable lock. Initially, it was initialized to false. Remember, guys, lock will be initialized to false. And to enter into the critical section, what the process should execute? To execute this, do, it will check the condition while test and set, right? While test and set, it will pass the value of the variable false, right? Initially, lock is initialized to false, no? So it will call this. It will call this, right? So whenever it is calling this method, test and set lock, test and set lock, what will happen? It will call this function, right? So what is the value passed here? What is the value passed here? That is false, right? We are calling the location, right? You're getting me, guys? Lock is false. So here target will be false, right? Now what RV will be? False. RV will be false. Then target, it will make true, right? Target, it will make true. RV will be false. Remember, guys? Now, because this function is returning false, while this function is returning false, right? You're getting me, guys? While it is, you're understanding me, right? What it will do? Boolean test set, Boolean target. What was passed through here? It is, guys, 1 second. Don't get confused. I'll take the whiteboard and try to explain you, because I already explained this to the other section, so that it will be easy for you to understand. Guys, this by taking example, it was not explained in your textbook, but I am explaining you, right? So you can make a note of it in your notebooks because this is not available in the textbook, right? So now whatever I am trying to explain you now, you try to copy this in your notes, right? Yeah. So let's consider two processes are trying to execute this. Take the scenario as two processes are trying to execute this scenario. So that is the reason here I kept like this: CPU 1 and CPU 2. Can you able to see this now? CPU 1 and CPU 2. So initially what happens, right? Initially first process is executing this. So initially lock is equal to false. See, you try to understand this. You are seeing the screen, no? Right? So initially the lock, right, will be returning false, and that will be returned to the target. Now RV will be false by making the target is equal to true. By making the target is equal to true, right? You are getting me, guys? Right? Now, then what is happening? Because, right, what is happening? Because this while loop is returning false, right? The while loop is returning false, the system can enter into the critical section. The system can enter into the critical section, right? Now, guys, remember, when the system is in the critical section, when one process is in the critical section, let's consider the other process wants to enter into the critical section. Let's consider. Then what it will do? It try to execute this test and set instruction, right? To enter into the critical section, right? When the second process is trying to enter into the critical section, it will try to execute this test and set. Now, when it is executing this test and set, right? When it is executing the test and set, right? What the target contains now? You should respond, guys. What the target contains now? Yes, the target contains true now, right? Target contains true. Now, what the target will be returned into RV. The target is written into RV, right? Target is already true. Now, what RV is having now? What this function will return? True, right? Now, when it is trying to execute this condition, do what this while loop is returning? What the while loop is returning here? True. Because the while loop is returning true, what it has to do? It has to do nothing. See, you have a semicolon at the end of the while. You have the, see the code? You have the semicolon. Yeah. Now, see here, while you have the semicolon at the end of the line. That means when this while is returning true, it has to do nothing. While this is returning false, then only it is allowed to enter into the critical section. Right? It has to do nothing and it will be checking the condition continuously. And now, when the first process, which is in the critical section, right, has done its work and it is coming out of the critical section, let's consider. Then it will make lock is equal to false. It will make lock is equal to false, right? You are getting me, guys? It will be returning lock is equal to false. Now, let's consider. Now, P2 is trying to execute. When P2 is trying to execute, what this lock will be? False. Then execute this function, false. RB will returning false. So, when it is, the while loop is returning false, it can enter into the critical section. This is how we will allow the processes to use the critical section, right? By making use of the hardware instruction test and set. Clear for you all, guys? Yes? Please respond. Once again, which part ma starting నుంచి చేయాలా లేకపోతే where you got the doubt?
No, ma'am, just the whiteboard part, the do while loop, the while loop part.
Yes. From the beginning, you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, let's see, ma. Because it is the modern computer and consider you have two processors, CPU1, CPU2, right? Yes, no? And remember, initially lock will be false. Now, first, let's consider I have two processes, P1 and P2. P1 is getting executed in CPU1 and P2 is getting executed, right? So what do you mean by maintaining the critical section? When one process is in the critical section, no other process is allowed. Now, let's consider P1 wants to enter into the critical section, right? So it will execute this mutual exclusion code, right? It want to enter into the critical section. Now, what it will do while condition. Do while condition. And remember, while is ending. And after this, you have do nothing. That means when this while condition is true, it has to do nothing. Otherwise, it can enter into the critical section. While this is returning true, you have to do nothing. While this is returning false, you can enter into the critical section. Now, let's check whether this while is returning true or false. Now, what this while is doing, it is calling a function called test and set. This is the hardware instruction one. Hardware instruction. Now, what this test and set is having, it is having a parameter called target boolean. It is a boolean parameter which is target, right? What this will hold? This will hold the lock value. Lock value will be passed as the parameter to the test and set. Now, what is lock? Initially false. So it will return the same false to target. And what it is having inside the function, inside this test and set, the target is returned to RV. Make the target to true, return RV. So because target is false, it is returning false to the RV. And finally, this function is returning false. Finally, this function is returning false, right? Now, because it is returning false, it allows the system to enter into the critical section. To enter into the critical section. Now, remember, P1 is in the critical section. P1 is in the critical section, right? Now, the second process is trying to enter into the critical section. Right? You are getting me? The second process is trying to enter into the critical section. It will call this function, test and set function, right? Now, in the test and set, Boolean target. Now, what target will have? You should answer, ma. What this target will have now? True. Yes. Because we made target is equal to true when P1 is entering into the critical section. So, the target will have true now. And what? True will be returned to RV. So, now RV is true. Now, when it is calling this test and set function, this while is returning true. When this while is true, what it has to do? Will it be allowed to enter into the critical section? No, it has to do nothing until it returns false. When it will be returned false? When the process which is inside the critical section is coming out and making the lock is equal to false. When it is making the lock is equal to false. Yes, when it is making the lock is equal to false, then only the second process is allowed to enter into the critical section. Clear, guys? How you are going to, yes, ma'am. How you are going to achieve the locks using the critical section problem, right? We understand now. Coming to this compare and swap instructions, right? So in the compare and swap, it is having three parameters, right? If you see the definition, so it is the actual value, this is the expected value, and this is the new value, right? So we'll put the actual value into the temp, and when the value is equal to the expected value, then the swapping will be done. The value will become new value. Actually, you are going to swap value and new value, and when you are going to swap, this is when the value is equal to the expected value, then only you are going to perform the swap. You are understanding, guys? This definition you understood, no? Right? You will have the value here, new value, expected, right? So when the value and new value will be swapped, when the value is equal to expected value, right? So this method is also used for the critical section problem solution. So what are the properties it should follow? It should get executed atomically, the same thing. Return the original value of the past parameter is equal to value. So finally what it will return is value. Set value to new value, but only if value is equal to expected. That is swap takes place. Oh, sorry. So that is swap takes place only under this condition. When value is equal to expected, then only the swap will be done. Now, this is the simple compare and swap execution for the critical section, right? So initially lock will be initialized to 0. Initially lock will be initialized to 0. ఇక్కడ కూడా same అండి. While this is returning false, then only enter into the critical section, right? Right? When only, otherwise it has to do nothing. Initially, right? Compare, lock, and this is 0 is the expected value, 1 is the new value, right? You are getting me, guys? Right? While this is not equal to 0, do nothing. Right? This condition is true, do nothing. Otherwise, it can enter into the critical section. Now, initially, what is the initial value, 0. Initial value is 0. So see this function? Yes. So 0, expected value is 0, new value is 1. So now we'll have 0 in the temp, right? What is the initial value is there? 0 value in the temp. You are getting me, guys? Now, what value will become new value? What is the new value? 1, right? Because this value is equal to expected is satisfying. Now your value will become 1. Value will become 1, right? And it will return the temp. Now, check the condition here. What is there? No. Now, what is the lock? 0, right? And what is this? Expected. What is this? New. Now, what the value has become? 1. Value is equal to new value, right? So the swapping was done. The swapping was done. The value is having 1 now, right? The value is having 1. So this function, see where that is? Yeah. So because the this 0 and 1 got swapped, right? 0 and 1 got swapped. It is 1, 0, 0. Right? So this value is 1. 1 not equal to 0. The condition is not getting satisfied. So it will enter into the critical section. It will enter into the critical section. You understood, ma? Because the swapping was done, the lock will be 1 now. Right? What this value will contain now? It will contain 1. Right? Because this condition is getting failed, it can enter into the critical section. It can enter into the critical section. You are getting me, guys? Now, because it is having 1, and it is not equal to the, see, what the temp is having? Yes. Actually, now let's consider the second process is trying to execute this condition. The second process is trying to execute this condition, right? Now it will call this function. Right? Now, what this value will be? New value. What is the new value? 1, right? What is the new value? 1. What is the expected? 0, right? Here, expected is equal to the value. No, right? So that the swapping will not be done. The swapping will not be done, right? It will return the temp value, right? So what the temp is having now? What the temp is having now? No, ma. The temp is having 0 because initially the value is 0, right? Initially, guys, initially it is 0, no? So after what we are doing, we are putting that value in the temp. Temp is having 0. When P1 is getting executed, remember guys, when P1 is getting executed, temp will be 0. And we have made no changes after making the swapping, right? So because this condition is failing, it will not do the swapping for P2, but it will return temp as 0. You are trying to understand, right? Because it is returning 0, when you are trying to execute this, right, it will return here as 0, right? So 0 not equal to 0, no? It will return 0. Then if condition satisfies. Let me check once again. Yeah. Int value, int expected, into new value, right? Right? When the second time when the function is getting executed, what the value will be? What the value will be? Value is equal to 1. Avuna kada, value will be with the new value, no? What is the new value in the first case? It is 1 only, ma. New value will be holded in value. See, if this is confusing, I have another method because it was not given clearly in the textbook. From other textbook, I have taken one example for the same problem. So that will make you understand better. If you want, I will give you this. Yes, let me open that. The code. Yes, swapping. Yes. See, so this is the code which was given in some other textbook for your swapping. So there, what he is doing here is, along with the lock, he is also using a key, one more variable called key, right? And he is calling the swap function very easily. Boolean values he is calling a comma b, right? So when these two can be swapped, when we are calling this function, right, the swapping will be done, right? Now, initially, right, the lock will be false, and key will be true, right? And let's consider there are two processes in two CPUs which are trying to get it executed, right? Here P1, P2. So initially P1 will be executing this code, right? And we are making key is equal to true. While key is equal to true, for the first process, right? While the key is equal to true, perform the swap, enter into the critical section, enter into the critical section. While this function is returning false, then only you enter into the critical section. When it is returning true, you have to do nothing. Very simple, right? Now, so what this while function initially is, key is equal to true. Why? Because it is the first process. For this, key is equal to true. Now it will perform the swap mark. It will perform the swap. Lock and key will be swapped. So when you are swapping these two, key will be false and lock will be true. Because initially lock is false and key is true. Because you are swapping this, right? Your lock will be true and key will be false. Now the system is in the critical section. Let's consider. Right? The system is in the critical section. Let's consider. Now, the second process is trying to enter into the critical section. Right? It will try to execute this loop while key is equal to true. When what this function is returning? True or false? What this function is returning? True or false for the second process, P2 process? Tell me, guys. Yes, right? It is returning false. So when this is returning false, what it has to do? It has to wait. It has to do nothing. It will not be allowed to enter into the critical section. It has to wait here until lock will become false. Until the lock will become false. Right? So when the lock is becoming false, and when the second process wants to enter into the critical section, right? Then it will again try to execute this loop, right? When it tries to execute this loop, right? So then what happens? It will make the swap operation again, right? And when we are swapping again these two, what happens? This function will be returning false. Your key will it will be returning false. Then am I confused? Guys, you understand now the critical section problem using the distance check? Distance check clear అయిపోయింది కదా అందరికి? It is clear for you all, right? Yes. For this mark, for this compare and swap, you understood or it is still confusing? You understood this compare and swap? లేకపోతే ఒక పని చేద్దాం. First method was clear. Oh, okay. See, what I try to do now is the first method I try to write here, and we will try to uh, execute that, right? So let's see whether we can do it or not, because it was not done in the textbook mark. I try to do it. See, initially compare and swap, no? Right. Int for CPU1 first process, right? So I'm writing this function int compare, int compare and swap method. So it is having int value expected, then new value. I'm not writing the entire method. Now, what we are doing here is int temp is equal to value. The value will be returned to the temp. Now, if we, after putting it in the swap, we'll check the condition. If value is equal to expected, then value will be new value. Value will be new value and it will return temp. It will return temp. Now, what this actually mutual exclusion will do is while compare and swap of log comma 0 comma 1 not equal to 0, not equal to 0, right? Then do nothing. Otherwise, enter critical section, make lock is equal to 0, then reminder section while true. While true. Now, so this is the code mark, right? See the PPT. Lock is initialized to 0, right? Lock is initialized to 0. Lock is initialized to 0. Now, let's consider first P1. It want to enter into the critical section. Guys, be with me and try to give the answers. We try to understand your solution by making use of the swap now, right? So this is the P1. Now what P1 is doing? While compare and swap is not equal to 0, is not equal to 0, then do nothing. Right? Otherwise, enter into the critical section. Enter into the critical section. Now what it is passing? Compare, swap, log 0, 1. Right now, what is the log value? 0. What is the expected value? 0. What is the new value? 1. Now, int temp. Now temp is becoming 0. Temp is becoming 0. So value is equal to expected. 0 is equal to 0. Now value has become 1. Now value is new value. No, value is become 1. So return temp. What this function is returning? Yes or no? What this temp is doing? See, return temp value is equal to new value. Value is now 1, right? So the actual value is 1, temp is 0. Now, after this, check for the condition. While compare and swap of, right, log 0, 1, right? Log 0, 1. Value will be new value, return 10. So now tell me guys, when we are making value is equal to new value, what will be the temp? 0 or 1? After this statement, value is equal to new value, right? So what will be the temp now? Initially, temp value is equal to 0, expected is 0, new value is 1, right? And what we are making? Int temp is equal to value. Int temp is equal to value. So temp is having 0. Now we are checking the condition if value is equal to expected. Because value is equal to expected, now your value will become new value. So your value will be 1 now here. Then what it will return? 0. Then coming to this, while condition 0 not equal to 0. Condition is true or false? Condition is true or false? False. Then it will enter into the critical section. Then it will enter into the critical section. Now, let's consider, now the other process P2 wants to enter into the critical section. P2 wants to enter into the critical section. Now, what it will do? It will try to execute this loop do while compare and swap of log 0, 1 is not equal to 0. Right? Now, what this log will be? Value. What is the value now? 1. Right? And expected is 0. Expected is 0. And what is your new value will be? 1. Right? Now, what the temp will be now? 1. Right? Temp will be 1. If value is expected, condition satisfied? No, your value will not be changed. Your value will not be changed. Return temp. What it is returning now? 1. Right? Now, compare to this, while 1 not equal to 0. Condition satisfying? Yes. That means it has to do nothing. The second process will not be entered into the critical section. Will not be entered into the critical section until it comes out and it will make log is equal to 0. Now, after some time, log becomes 0. Let's consider. Log becomes 0. And the P2 is trying to execute this while compare and swap log 0, 1. So now 0, 0, 1. Temp will be 0. New value is equal to the expected, then swapping will be done. This function is returning false, it can enter into the critical section. This is how the critical section problem can be solved using using test and set and compare and swap functions. Now it is clear for you guys. See, don't go for the second solution then. I thought second solution will be easy for you. You can better understand. But if you feel that is confusing, right? So don't go for it. Go for the first solution, which is there in your textbook only. Now you tell me, guys, both are clear for you all? Very good. It is clear. Then we can move to the next topic. That is mutex logs. The next topic is mutex logs. Guys, can I take a break? Can I have some water and come? See, this topic is a bit confusing only. I am only telling you the synchronization, critical section problem, everything. You feel it as a bit confusing only, right? But if you can go through it 2-3 times, you can better understand and you feel it easy only, right? You need not to worry for that, right? So now, if you are clear with this two test and set and compare and swap functions for the critical section problem, right? The solutions, these are the solutions for maintenance. I can say these instructions are used to manage the logs. If you can manage the logs, that means you are giving the solution to the critical section problem, right? So if you are clear with these two, I can take the break. Yes, please respond, guys. 70 only responded. Yes. Shravya, very good. It is clear for you. What about the others? I can see 45 members there. Yes, clear. Okay, okay, ma. So I'll have some water and come. Give me break, right? Uh, Yes, ma'am. Am I audible? Guys, are you able to hear me now? Yeah. Now let's move to the next topic. Very small topic, ma. Simple topic. Mutex blocks, right? Right. Now, see, if you see the hardware-based solution to the critical section problems, right? They are complicated, right? And as well as they are inaccessible to the application programmers because they are hardware instructions, right? They are hardware instructions. They are not accessible to the application programmers, right? So the OS designers, they build some software tools to solve the critical section problem. So because of the limitations of the the synchronization hardware, because of the limitations of the synchronization hardware, the OS developers, they build some software tools to solve the critical section problem. Right? So the simplest of these tools is the mutex tool. Right? The simplest of these tools is the mutex. You can call it as mutex lock. Right? So what is this mutex? It is the full form of mutual exclusion. MUT is mutual, EX is exclusion, right? So this mutex is the shortest form for the mutual exclusion, right? Now, we use the mutex lock to protect the critical region and thus prevent the race condition. So this mutex lock is used to protect the critical regions so that we can prevent the race condition. That is, a process must acquire the process must acquire the lock before entering a critical section, and it releases the lock when it exits the critical section. So here it is using two functions, acquire and release. So the acquire function acquires the lock and the release function releases the lock, right? And a mutex lock has a Boolean variable that is available, right? It is using a Boolean variable. You can call it as available, right? So this available will tell you whether the lock is available or not. This available will tell you whether the lock is available or not. If the lock is available, a call to the acquire succeeds, right? If the lock is available, then the acquire function, what we are calling to the acquire function, it will get succeeds and the system is allowed to enter into the critical section, right? Now, when this function is succeeds, then lock is considered unavailable. A process that attempts to acquire an unavailable lock is blocked until the lock is released. See, when a function is returning this call, acquire, it will check for the condition while available, right? If available, that means the process is succeeding and it is entering into the critical section. And whenever it is entering into the critical section, it will make the lock
availability as false. Now, when the second process is trying to acquire the lock, then that will be available, not available, and that will make the process to keep in the busy wait. Right? While not available, it has to be in the busy wait. It has to be in the busy wait. And after the process is coming out of the critical section, it will release the lock, then it will become available is equal to true. And when available is equal to true, the process which is in the busy waiting, right, can be allowed now to enter into the critical section. Very simple, ma. I have a room, that is critical section. When a process is entering into the critical section, when no one is inside, that process is allowed and it will be logged. It will be made not available, right? And here, the second process which wants to use that room, which wants to enter into the critical section, it has to be in the busy waiting. See, it will be in this while loop for the long amount of time until it becomes true. The available becomes true, right? Now, this will be done. Do acquire lock, right? Do acquire lock, enter into the critical section, release the lock, execute the remaining section, right? Now, remember, this calls to acquire and release must be atomic. That means when one function is executing this acquire, no other process is allowed. When the process is executing release, no other process is allowed to execute that, right? Right? This atomicity will be implemented via hardware atomic instructions, right? Now, but this mutex, using the mutex is leading to the busy waiting, ma. Using to busy waiting ante entante, see, when one process is in the critical section, P1, P2 wants to use the critical section, right? So in that case, when P2 is executing this, when the P2 is executing this acquire, right? Because the available is false, because the critical section is not available, the process has to be execute this while loop continuously. It has to be executed continuously. That means the CPU will be with the P2 process only, will be executing this while loop, right? So, but it is wasting the CPU time. Why? Because on busy waiting, your CPU time is getting wasted, and so many other processes are waiting for the CPU. So many processes are waiting for the CPU. Here it will not be blocked like that. It will be the continuous waiting. So that is the reason you can call this lock as spin lock. Why? Because it will be as a spin. It will be executing this while condition. Right? So the main disadvantage of implementing the mutex is that requires the busy waiting. That is, while a process is in the critical section, right, any other process that tries to enter the critical section must loop continuously in the call to acquire. In fact, this type of mutex lock is also called as spin lock, because the process spins while waiting for the lock to become available. Right? So this continuous looping is clearly a problem in a real-time multi-programming system. While a single CPU is shared among many processes, busy waiting based CPU cycles that some other processes might be able to use productively. Right? But spin locks also have some advantage, ma. What that is, no context switch is required when a process must wait on a lock. See, normally when one process is in waiting for some other thing, the CPU will be allocated to some other process, and when the resources are available for this again, it will be switched back. So this process is called context switching, right? So this spin locks is having advantage because no context switch is required when a process must wait on a lock. Why I am telling it is advantage is because the context switch may take considerable time. For the context switching also, it is taking some time, right? Thus, when locks are expected to be held for short time, then this mutex locks are useful, right? So that means, as I told you, the process will be in the busy waiting for the lock. And if the locks are taking very, very less amount of time, then you can go for the mutex locks for the processes. So that is the reason mutex locks also can be used for the critical section problem, right? When we can use, when the lock is for the short time, when the lock is for the short time, right? And now this is all about the mutex ma. Let's go to the semaphores, right? So whatever the mutex locks we discussed now are generally considered the simplest synchronization tool, right? Whatever the mutex what we discussed, we can call them as simplest of the synchronization tool. But here we discuss a more robust tool, right? Which behave similarly to the mutex lock, but also provide more sophisticated way for the processes to synchronize their activities. So I can say it is the most robust synchronization tool which provides more sophisticated ways for the process to synchronize their activities. You are following me, guys? Clear for you all about the mutex locks? Yes? Yeah. Now we are discussing the semaphores. So semaphores also synchronization tool only, right? But this is the more robust synchronization tool, right? Which will provide more sophisticated ways for the processes to synchronize their activities. Now, a semaphore, yes, we can represent the semaphore with SMA. S is an integer variable. A semaphore S is an integer variable, right? So apart from its initialization, as we are initializing S as integer, int S, right? Here the semaphore S is accessible only through two standard atomic operations, wait and signal. Can only be accessed via two indivisible, that means two atomic operations, wait and signal, right? So the wait operation, you can originally term it as PMA, originally you can call it as P, which come from a Dutch word proberen, P-R-O-B-E-R-E-N, proberen, right? So that means to test. Wait is to test. To test means what? Whether the critical section is available or not. So for that we use the wait function. All right. And the signal is originally called V, that is Verhogen, V-E-R-H-O-G-E-N, that is to increment. The meaning of wait is to test. The meaning of signal is to increment. So if you see the definitions of both wait and signal, wait function, wait S means while S is less than or equal to 0, it has to be in the busy wait. That means S has to be a positive integer. Remember, S has to be a positive integer. While S is less than or equal to 0, that means S is not equal to the positive integer. It has to be in the busy wait. Otherwise, S can be decremented by 1 and will be allowed to enter into the critical section, will allowed to use the critical section. Signal means to increment. That means when a process is coming out of the critical section, it is coming out of the critical section, then it will be executing the signal where it is incrementing S is equal to S plus 1. Now, I'll try to explain you this with a simple example, ma. Critical section daaka ellakandi. Consider as your system is having a resource. Your system is having a printer. It is having one printer in your system, let's consider. What S will be? What S will be? 1. Because you have one resource. You have one resource. right? Now let's consider the first process is calling this wait function. And when it is the first process is calling this function, it will be checked with the condition y less than or equal to 0. This condition is satisfied or not? This condition is satisfied or not? No, because s is equal to 1 less than or equal to 0. It is returning false, so that the system will be allowed to use the resource. So before it is using the resource, it will make s is equal to s minus 1. That is s is 0. Because you have only one resource, s will be 1. If you have two printers, s will be 2. Like that, you have to consider. I have taken a scenario with only s is equal to 1. The first process is using the printer by making s is equal to 0. Now let's consider the second process wants to use the printer now. It will be executing this wait. When it is executing this wait, what s will be now? 0. 0 less than or equal to 0 satisfied, so it will be in the busy wait until s becomes positive. When s will be positive? When the first process releases the printer. When the first process is releasing the printer, it will execute the signal. It will be executing the signal which will increment the s value. Clear, guys? Clear? What no? This example, it's signal. Okay, fine. Now come here. Seema, let's consider s is equal to 1. In your system, you have only one printer. S is equal to 1. The first process P1. The first process P1. When the P1 is checking this condition while s is less than or equal to 0, because your s is equal to 1, this will be failed. This condition is failing means the process will not be busy waiting. It can be allowed to enter into the critical section. So when it is entering into the critical section, it will make s is equal to s minus 1. Now it is making s is equal to 0 because what is the one printer that is available, that process is going to use it. So that it is making the available number of printers to 0. Because only one available, that one is P1 is going to use it. Now, the second process P2 is trying to execute s now. What will be s now? 0, right? Because the first process is using the printer and it made s is equal to 0. So if you check the while condition, 0 less than or equal to 0 satisfied, it will be in the busy waiting. The second process will be in the busy waiting. Till what time? Till this condition fails. When this will be failed? When the first process is releasing. To release the resource, that means when a process is coming out of the critical section, it will execute the signal. Signal, what it will do? It will increment s. Right? So here it made s is equal to 0, no P1. Now it is making s is equal to s plus 1. So now it is making 1. Because the P1 released the printer, now the printer is ready to be used by other processes. Now when the P2 is executing this loop again, it will be s is equal to 1. So this condition will be failed so that the system can be allowed to use the printer. The process will be, but it has to make s is equal to s minus 1. Clear now? Clear now? Yes, yes. Okay. Signal ఏం చేయదమ్మా. What it will do is, whenever it is releasing a resource, it will increment the semaphore. That's all. It will increment the semaphore. Now, semaphore usage. Coming to this, right? So it is used to solve the various synchronization problems, right? So I can give a solution for the critical section problem by using this semaphore. I can try to give you a solution for the critical section problem by using the semaphore. What is the critical section problem is, I want the P2 to execute after P1 executed. Right? I want to see, that is what. Consider P1 and P2 that requires a code segment S1 to happen before the code segment S2. That means I want P1 to be executed first, then only I want the P2 to be executed. Right? I want the P2 to be executed. Now, see, create a semaphore. Akkada S annano, ikkada I am making it as sync. I am making it as sync. SYNCH. Instead of S, I am using sync. Remember, right? Now, create a semaphore sync initialized to 1. First, it will call the wait. Then it enter into the critical section. Then after, it will call the signal. You are getting me, guys? First, whenever it is entering into the critical section, it will call the wait function. Then it will enter into the critical section. When no one is there in the critical section, then after coming out of it, it will call the signal. Now here my condition is, I want, so how I am using the semaphores for the critical section problem here is, right? I want the P1 to be executed first, then P2, right? Then P2. So for that, what I am doing is, I am writing like this. Create a semaphore sync initialized to 0 here, right? I am creating a semaphore initialized to 0 here. Then I am executing the P1. In that I have a code S1 and I am calling the function signal sync. Because I have initialized sync to 0, I have, right? I have initialized to sync 0 and in P1, I am calling the signal function. And in P2, I am calling the wait function. So that until S becomes 1, until sync becomes 1, P2 will not get executed. Why? Because P2 has to wait until the signal becomes a positive value. When it will be positive value, it will be done only in the P1 with the signal function. Because I got initialized sync to 0. Right? So this way I can able to achieve my synchronization. That means I want P1 to be executed first, then only P2. How I can do this is, which process I want to execute first, in that function I am calling the signal. And initially I am making sync initialized to 0. In P1 I am calling signal and in P2 I am calling wait. So that until unless the signal is getting executed, P2 will not get executed because I have called wait in P2. So when this P2 will be satisfied, when we are having S a positive value, when that will be positive, when I execute the signal, where the signal I am having in P1. So that is how I can make sure that P1 will be executed first, then only P2. Clear, guys? Adhamaindamma? How I can able to achieve the synchronization? Yes. Now I can move to the next topic. We have two types of semaphores, ma. One is counting semaphore and the binary semaphore. Counting semaphore is nothing but it is having an integer value ranging over unrestricted domain. It is an integer value ranging unrestricted domain where I can use counting semaphores is when my system is having more than one instances of the resources. Let's consider my system is having 5 printers, right? Then this counting semaphore starts with 5, right? When this counting semaphore starts with 5, right? S will be 5 initially. For the first process, printer will be assigned, S will become 4. For the second process, it will be allowed. Till 5 processes, it will be allowed. When the 6th process is trying to use that, it will be in the busy wait until one of the process will release the printer. Why? Because when it is releasing, it will make S is equal to S plus 1. Then S will be 1 when the first process released. So that the process can use. When the second process released, S will be 2. When the third process released, S will be 3. That way, the counting semaphore will be used. Clear, guys? Counting semaphore, adhamaindamma? counting semaphore is an integer value, right? It can range over an unrestricted domain. The value can be anything based on the available resources. But when it is coming to the binary semaphore, it can range only between 0 and 1. I have only one a resource, that one resource initially that will be assigned to 1, and when one process is using that, it will be 0. When it is 0, the process will be in the busy waiting until S becomes 1. That is the binary semaphore. Clear for you all, guys? This is binary semaphore and the counting semaphore. If you say S, I can move to the next topic. So here the binary semaphore is equal to your mutex only. Counting semaphore means the value of the semaphore can range over an unrestricted domain. That means S value can be anything. That is based on the number of available resources in the system. If your system is having 5 instances of the same resource, for that S will be 5. And after giving to the 5 processes, the 6th process has to wait. But when it is coming to the binary semaphore, it is ranging between 0 and 1 only. 1 means the process can use that. 0 means the process has to wait. So that is why I can say the binary semaphore behaves similarly to the mutex. Right? So where you have a systems which will not provide mutex locks, binary semaphores can be used instead for providing the mutual exclusion. So this point you can remember here, right? It is same as the mutex only, right? So you can use the binary semaphore, right? Where your system is not supporting the mutex locks for the mutual exclusion, right? Now, counting semaphore, so allow at most 2 processes to execute in the critical section. For that, sync will be initialized to 0 because I have 2 instances. That means it can allow two processes to use the resources, right? So then create a semaphore initialized to 2, right? First process will execute wait, enter into the critical section. Second process will execute the wait and enter into the critical section, right? And when it is coming out of the critical section, those will be coming out of the critical section and incrementing the sync. Now, coming to the semaphore implementation, how this can be done. So why I am separately explaining you this implementation is because your mutex is having the problem of busy waiting. Here we are trying to solve the busy waiting. We are trying to solve the busy waiting, right? So mutex is suffering from the busy waiting, right? Here to overcome for busy waiting, here we try to modify wait and signal operations. We are trying to modify the wait and signal operations, right? So what we are doing is, how we are modifying it, when a process executes wait operation, listen carefully, when a process executes the wait operation, right? When executes the wait operation, finds that semaphore value is not positive. That means what? Semaphore is not positive means what? Some other process is already there in the critical section. That means it must wait. However, rather than engaging in busy waiting, what the process will do is, right, that process can block itself. That process can block itself, right? That can block itself. Then the block operation places a process into a waiting queue associated with the semaphore. That means when a process is blocking himself, that will be moved to the waiting queue that is associated with the semaphore, and the state of the process is switched to waiting state from the blocked, and after it is moved to the waiting queue, the process state is moved to the wait state, and then control is transferred to the CPU scheduler, so that the CPU can select another job for the execution instead of keeping with the process in the busy waiting. You're getting me, guys? Ardhamaindamma? How we are going to achieve this using the semaphores? Yes. What we are doing is, instead of we are running in the busy waiting, process will block himself. When the process got blocked himself, that will be moved to the waiting queue, but that waiting queue must be associated with the semaphore. Why? Because whenever any signal function is executed, this waiting process has to be moved to the ready queue again. Right? When it been moved to the waiting state, from the blocked, the state of the process is changed to the waiting state. Right? See, I'll draw very simple because board is available. Same. What happens here is, see, I have P1, P2. P1 already entered into the critical section. When P2 is trying to enter into the critical section, semaphore will be negative value, non-positive, right? Because it is making S is equal to S minus 1, S is negative. Now, when S is negative, that means when the condition is satisfying, actually it will be in the busy waiting, right? In mutex logs, this is the drawback. In mutex, we are having, this is the drawback. So to avoid this, what we are doing is, in semaphores, when the process is trying to execute this wait, and returning negative, instead of entering into the busy waiting, what it will do is, it will block himself. When it is blocked, it will be moved to the waiting queue. It will be moved to the waiting queue, which is associated with semaphore. And when it is entered into the waiting queue, its state will be changed from blocked to waiting. Blocked to waiting, right? And because it is associated with the semaphore, and whenever there is a signal function called on the semaphore, that means when the P1 process is releasing, it will call the signal node. Whenever there is a signal, right, from the waiting, that process will be moved to ready queue. From the waiting queue, the process will be moved to the ready queue when the signal was executed. Now, from the ready queue, the process has to be given to the CPU or not. It depends on the CPU scheduler. అది రెడీ క్యూలో వచ్చినంత మాత్రాన వెంటనే మనం దాన్ని సిపియూకి ఇస్తామని చెప్పలేమండి. That depends on the CPU scheduler. CPU scheduler can pick this job or else it can pick any other job. This is how your semaphore implementation can be done, right? So for that, it should maintain a list, no? So this semaphore, this waiting queue, we can represent as a list. So I will show you the code for this. Ardhamaindamma how this can be done? Sorry. Yes. If this is clear, the method is clear for you all, I will show you the implementation part. Guys, respond? Yeah. Now. Yes, this is the code, right? Each semaphore, there is an associated waiting queue, what I have told you. Each entry to the waiting queue has two data items. One is value, the pointer to the next record in the list, right? You have the list, right? So for each entry, we have some integer value and a pointer to the next record in the list, right? So we'll be performing two operations, block and wake up. So wake up ante entante, because the process, right, is in the waiting queue, right? When this wake up will be performed is whenever there is a signal operation in the semaphore. Whenever there is a signal operation in the semaphore, this wake up will be performed. Block ante enti, it places the process invoking the operation on the appropriate waiting queue. So whenever a process is calling this block, that will be kept in the waiting queue. And when this wake up operation can be performed here, see, because it is in the waiting state, no, semaphore, whenever there is a signal function in the semaphore, it will perform the wake up. Here, it will perform the block function to block himself to move to get it moved to the waiting queue. So the same thing here. Block means the places the process invoking the operation on the appropriate waiting queue. Wake up means removes one process in the waiting queue and places in the ready queue. Now, how the semaphore can be implemented? Now, see, wait semaphore. Wait lo em jarugundandi? S value will be S minus minus, right? When S value is less than 0, that is some negative value, then add this process to the list. Then block that process. That process will be blocked. Now, whenever the signal is happening, it will increment the S value and check for the condition. If it is positive, right? If it is positive, right? Then remove a process from P and remove a process P from the list and call the wake up. That means that will be moved to the ready queue. You're understanding, guys? Yes or no? So implementation with no busy waiting. Does the implementation ensure that progress requirement? Does implementation ensure the bounded waiting requirement? Right. So these two, we try to solve this. If you can implement the semaphores with no busy waiting, right? So does the process, this implementation ensuring the progress requirement? So progress requirement means the first conditions we checked, no, progress, bounded waiting and mutual exclusion, right? So can we able to achieve that or not? Yes, we can do that, right? Why? Because when one process is there, the other process we should make sure that the other process should not enter here. So mutual exclusion is done. Progress means when no other process is there, among the waiting processes, one will be allowed to enter into the critical section. Yes, that we are doing, right? And then bounded waiting. Bounded waiting means what? When one process used it, right? And so many processes are waiting for it. And when it is coming out of it, it will give the chance to the one of the waiting processes, right? So those three we are trying to achieve it. So this is all about your semaphores one, right? So but this method is having some drawbacks also. That is, it is leading to the deadlock and starvation. This is leading to deadlock and starvation. So how it is leading to deadlock? So see, read this. 2 or more processes are waiting indefinitely for an event that can be caused only one of the waiting processes. So if we run to semaphores unayama, S and Q, which are initialized to 1. P0. Actually, P0 is calling wait S. P0 is calling wait S and P1 is calling wait Q. Right? Now, immediately, P0 is calling wait Q, then P1 is calling wait S. Right? You're getting me, guys? P1 executes wait S, then P1 executes wait Q. Right? When P0 executes wait Q, right, it must wait until P1 executes signal Q. Avuna kada? Because it is calling wait Q, it must wait until P1 executes signal Q. Because P1 is already executed this wait Q. Now, the same thing with this also. To execute wait S, P0 executes signal S. So when this executes signal S, after wait Q only. So this is the first step, ma. P0 called wait S. Okay. P1 called wait Q. Now immediately what P0 called wait Q. But this will be done only after P1 executes signal Q. But before that, P1 has to execute wait S. When this wait S can be executed? Only after P1 executes signal S. So because until unless P1 executes wait Q, it will not execute signal Q. That means it will not release S. Until unless P1 acquires S, it will not execute, it will not release Q. These two will be in the busy waiting and these two will be blocked. So this is how these are leading to the deadlock condition. Clear, guys? You understand this? I have two regions. Two semaphores are being used for them, S and Q. First, P1 is using S and waiting for Q. And P1 is using Q, waiting for S. So until unless P1 releases, P0 will not release. Until unless P0 release, P1 will not release. So these two are leading to the deadlock situation. And one more drawback here with this, starvation. Starvation means, see, when a process is blocking himself and enter into the waiting queue, right? A process may never be removed from the semaphore queue in which it is suspended. A ready queue launchi, a waiting queue launchi, it was never been moved to the ready queue from the waiting queue. So that is one more possibility is there, that we can call it as indefinite blocking, that is leading to the starvation, right? But we can solve this starvation problem. How we can is, if you can implement your semaphore with a LIFO, last in first out, right? If you can implement semaphore with last in first out, you can try to solve the starvation problem, right? And one more is there, this is priority inversion, right? You have, so scheduling problem when low priority process holds a lock needed by the high priority process. So priority inversion problem comes with this, right? So the problem comes when the low priority process is holding a lock which is needed by the high priority process. So how you are going to solve it is by using the priority inheritance protocol. So a scheduling challenge arises when a high priority process needs to read or modify the kernel data that is currently being accessed by a low priority process, right? So since the kernel data are typically protected with a lock, the higher priority process will have to wait for a low priority process, right, to finish with the resource. So this situation becomes more complicated if the low priority process is preempted in favor of the another process with a high priority, right? But if you can preempt it, again it will be a problem, right? So for that, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to solve this using the priority inheritance protocol, right? That is, I can, one second. According to this protocol, all processes that are accessing the resources needed by a high priority process inherit the higher priority until they are finished with the resources in the queue, right? Inheritance అంటే ఏంటంటే ఎప్పుడైతే low priority process is using the lock, right? When the low priority process is using the lock and the higher priority process wants to use the lock, right? It is waiting for the lock. What this priority inheritance will be done is, it inherits the higher priority until they finish. So what are the low priority processes are there, right? Those processes will inherit with the high priority, so that your system will not preempt them even though they are low priority processes, right? So this is all about your semaphores. So with this, we are done with today's class.